Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to day 71 of Commercial Diving School. We are now in week 3 of our sophomore mod, so I'm going to talk about everything that happened today. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and leave any comments or questions for me down below. So today we're basically in the classroom all day. We're talking about the lesson plan was talking about offshore oil and mixed gas. So when we're talking about offshore, we're basically talking about oil rigs off the coast or in the Gulf of Mexico, and basically there's a bunch out there. And which I didn't know was that, well, I knew fossil fuels came from fossils, millions of years of pressure on those fossils forced them into fossil fuels. But what I didn't know was that the Mississippi River is responsible for the oil reservoirs in the Gulf of Mexico. Basically, that river has been dumping sediment into the Gulf for millions of years, and it just piles more sediment on top of more sediment on top of more sediment. Ergo, you get pressure, and then you get fossil fuels from that. So that's one thing that I learned today. And then we just basically talked about those two topics. So offshore oil, and then we talked about mixed gas. So we already learned a lot about mixed gas already in school, and this was kind of felt like a refresher. Like we already kind of knew this. We already knew that we used helium. We already knew about nitrogen. We already know a lot about oxygen. And then, they sometimes use argon for other things like your dry suit. But I haven't heard that in commercial diving. I've only heard that in like the recreational world for your dry suits. But anyways, basically we talked about different oil rigs. You got your jackup rigs, which that you transport, like you tug them out to the location, and then they basically jack up. Like they have these huge jacks, I guess, that basically like a jack that they lower down until they hit the seabed, and then it keeps it up. And then they have semi-submersibles, which like Deepwater Horizon, that was a semi-submersible because it has huge pontoons that are on each of the like things that hold the platform up is called a leg. They don't want to use any other terminology besides leg. They're very particular about that they're called legs. And anyways, the semi-submersible leg has a ballast tank on it, and it basically goes down semi-submersed, and then it has propellers on there that keep use satellite positioning to keep it steady, just like the Deepwater Horizon. Then you got drill ships, which I think can drill the deepest. So each one of these platforms has different capacities as far as their limitations on how deep they can drill and what depth of water they can be at. And then I think in the book says that the drill ships can drill the deepest. Like there's basically no limit on them. You can just keep on adding more piping to them. But yeah, anyways, a lot of this stuff that we talked about is going to be on our test. So we're just going through, we got 2 packets that are going to be basically our study guides. And they have like highlighted sections in there, so we really know what to focus on and stuff like that. And then we also talked about jet sleds, which is pretty cool because basically you have a pipe, a really long pipe. And like I said in a previous video, I didn't know that I knew that there was some oil rigs. I didn't know that there was that many in the Gulf of Mexico, and I didn't know that there was that much piping. There's just piping everywhere. It's like a huge spider web in the Gulf of Mexico that's transporting like all these oils and stuff like that. And these pipes, there's miles and miles and miles of them, and they sometimes need to be buried into the sediment or the dirt or whatever you want to call it. And so they use a jetting sled. And it was kind of cool because our instructor actually did a job where he had to set up a jetting sled. And it's kind of how it sounds. It's a sled that jets. So if you didn't know, jetting is where you basically want to pump something out of somewhere. So if you have a bunch of sediment, you can use air. Air goes up a tube. It expands as it rises. It pulls all the sediment and dirt out, and it shoots it out of the top of the piping. And so you want to do that because you want to jet a ditch for the pipe to sit in. And so you can cover it up so the pipe will be protected and it's not exposed to whatever. It's protected basically by the layer of dirt that you're creating. So the sled basically has skis that it slides along, and it has like rollers, like big rollers that roll along the pipe so that it can basically drag along. And as it's dragging, it's jetting out the dirt so that it can create a ditch for the pipe to sit in. And as a diver, your job is to check many things. You need to check the rollers. You need to check, you need to basically place that sled onto the piping, because it's, they're going to basically, above water, they're going to crane the sled over. They're going to go down with it. And then it's just going to, like, the pipe's going to be way over here, and then the sled's going to be here. And then as a diver, you got to go in with no visibility, which means you can't see anything. And you got to follow a down line to your sled, and then you got to tie off to the sled, and then rappel yourself down, and then sweep, which is basically, holding your umbilical so you know which way you're facing in complete, darkness, and then just kind of walking your way until you bump into something, and then hopefully it's a pipe, and then you can guide the sled. And these sleds are, tons and tons. They're like, 400, 500, 600 tons that you have to guide underwater and basically get it to sit on the pipe. And then you got to check to make sure everything's, lined up correctly. You gotta take soil samples, is something. The instructor didn't know too much about it because he's never had to do it. So we didn't learn too much about what the soil samples are for, but it could be another job you perform as a diver. And then you also have to maybe measure the inside of the ditch. So you want to get, this is a big thing as a diver, you want to get used to measuring things with your, extremities. So basically you decide what you want to use to measure. So whether you want to use your hand to measure something, like, exactly that from the bottom of your palm to the tip of your finger, it's 8 inches. And then, from your elbow to the tip of your finger is, about 2.5 feet. And that will help you immensely because you're going to be in zero visibility. You're going to have to measure how long something is, because you're going to have to report that to like the supervisor or the company that's hiring you to do the job. Like, how far is this from that? Stuff like that. So that's just one thing divers need to know, is how long certain things are so that they can take measurements, because you're not going to be able to pull out, your handy dandy measuring tape and, be able to read it even if you had one. But that's just the thing as a diver. Yeah, like I said, and then the other portion was mixed gas. But the other thing about diving is there's different types of diving. And if you didn't know, there's offshore diving, where you dive offshore, like in the Gulf of Mexico. Other countries have, like, the North Sea has a lot of oil. And there's different other places that you can dive for offshore. Inland diving, you're going to be basically anywhere that has water, and you can even be diving in sewage tanks and stuff like that. But there's many, rivers, dams, like you name it, like maybe lakes, and then there's coastal, which is kind of like an inland, I guess, but you're on the coast, so you deal with the ocean, instead of, like a river or something like that. But there's also saturation diving, and saturation diving is basically like offshore diving, but it's at deeper depths. There's limits on offshore diving. I think it's like 300 to 400 feet, because I've heard different stories. I heard 300 is a limit, but I heard that sometimes there's jobs that support up to 400 feet. But anyways, deeper than that, you need to go into saturation diving. And let me know in the comments if you want to know more about that. I obviously am not a diver. I'm just going to school, so I only have so much information, but I do have from what I've learned from school. So, and then there's other types of diving too. There's like radiation, like not radiation diving, but power plant diving, where you basically dive at a power plant, and that has to do with hazardous pay, and because it deals with maybe some radiation and stuff like that. So it's a little bit higher of a pay. But anyways, that's basically all we did today. We're going to be in the classroom again tomorrow, and then the rest of the week is going to be salvage operations. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave any comments or questions down below. Hope you guys have a great one. Stay tuned for the next one. See you in the next video.